It's 8 o'clock.
Good morning. This is Northern Light for April 25th. I'm Monica Sandreski.
And I'm Todd Moe.
St. Lawrence Health and nurses at its 3 North Country hospitals are holding a negotiating meeting today for a new contract. One nurse says it's hard to recruit and retain her colleagues.
There are times when on day shift we will have 7 patients apiece, and that's a lot. At 7 patients apiece, I can give my patient about 8.5 minutes of my time per hour.
Also, a tiny hamlet in Essex County unveiled its new solar array last weekend. The panels on top of the Waylandsburg Grange Hall are now producing more than enough energy to power the facility.
We're a little town. We have 621 people in our town. But I believe that for large changes to be effectuated, small, little towns need to get on board.
Plus, as part of our ongoing series on North Country libraries, we'll check in with Peter Benson, former director of the Saranac Lake Free Library.
When I was working there, I also worked the front desk because you never knew who was going to walk in, and you never knew what kind of questions they were going to have.
All of that and more is coming up on Northern Light. Stick with us.
Broadcast of Northern Light here on North Country Public Radio is supported by Adirondack Foundation and the Adirondack Birth to 3 Alliance, dedicated to providing all children the best possible start in life, AdirondackBT3.org, and by Citizen Advocates, offering the North Country mental health, addiction, and housing services, plus crisis care, job training, and more. citizenadvocates.net/124.
This is Northern Light. I'm Monica Sandreski.
And I'm Todd Moe. St. Lawrence Health and nurses at its 3 North Country hospitals are trying to negotiate a new contract. Nurses at Canton Potsdam, Gouverneur, and Messina hospitals say safe staffing is a big sticking point. Kara Chapman has more.
Negotiations on a new contract between St. Lawrence Health and the 3 hospitals unions started in the fall. The latest bargaining session, their 26th, involved a mediator and lasted from 9 a.m. Wednesday into the early morning hours on Thursday.
It was rough. I think we made a lot of gains.
That's Brittany Murphy, a nurse at Messina Hospital. She's also a member of the hospital's New York State Nurses Association Executive Committee.
I think we moved in a really positive direction on a lot of things that are very, very important both to the hospital and the community.
Things like pay and health insurance, she says. SLH says it proposed a 21% pay raise over the next 5 years, as well as a new health insurance option. Pay parity that would put nurses at all 3 hospitals on the same wage scale was also discussed. But Murphy says negotiations missed the mark on some key areas, like safe staffing. Based on her experience at Messina Hospital, Murphy says SLH isn't adhering to staffing ratios it agreed to with New York State last year.
There are times when on day shift we will have 7 patients apiece, and that's a lot. At 7 patients apiece, I can give my patient about 8.5 minutes of my time per hour.
Murphy says that means patients aren't getting the level of care they should be getting. She sees this as both a recruitment and a retention issue. Fellow nurse Susan Quinnell agrees. She estimates that at least 6 nurses have left her department over the last year and a half to take jobs as traveling nurses instead. Quinnell says her former coworkers didn't feel supported by SLH management.
Yes, there's a nursing shortage, but we could be in much better shape if we were taking better care of the nurses we have in the area.
St. Lawrence Health declined to do an interview for this story, but sent statements. On retention and guaranteeing safe staffing, SLH said its proposals, quote, contained a number of elements that will assist in the system's effort to recruit nurses. Those include the wage and benefits package, additional pay for evening and night shifts, and sign-on bonuses. Dozens of nurses and their supporters picketed outside Messina Hospital Thursday evening.
We deserve a fair contract, and our nurses and our community deserve safe, quality health care.
The next bargaining session will take place today at the new medical campus in Canton. Murphy encourages the community to come out with any questions. She says St. Lawrence Health should listen to its nurses.
We are not asking for, the moon. We're not asking for ridiculous pay raises. We're not asking for ridiculous things. We just want our patients to be safe, which at the end of the day is protecting St. Lawrence health systems.
In the statement, SLH said it's, quote, committed to bargaining in good faith to reach a new contract that ensures the best care for patients and fair treatment of nurses. The system added, quote, SLH continues to have the highest respect for all its nurses and is extremely grateful for all they do every day to care for patients. Kara Chapman, North Country Public Radio.
Plattsburgh Police Department officers are getting body cameras. According to the Plattsburgh Press-Republican newspaper, the City Council on Thursday approved a grant that will cover the cost of 23 cameras plus the first year of cloud storage. Mayor Chris Rosenquist said they would be shared among the 40-plus officers in the department. The Press-Republican reports that there is no timeline for when use of the cameras will be implemented, but they'll be mandatory to wear once brought online.
The city of Glens Falls has won a competitive federal grant that will support the planning and development of multiple transportation projects. According to a press release, the city is one of 64 communities nationwide to receive a Thriving Communities grant from the U.S. Department of Transportation. Jeff Flagg is the city's economic development director. He says the projects Glens Falls is looking at include a multimodal transportation hub and electrification of its bus fleet. Flagg says the Thriving Communities funding will help the city work with its regional partners to move the projects forward.
There are big solar installations popping up around the North Country. Many of them feed into the state's energy grid, but there are also smaller projects powering local communities. Emily Russell brings us to Waylandsburg in Essex County, where locals hope their new solar project inspires other towns.
It's a sunny Saturday, and a little crowd is forming outside the Waylandsburg Grange, a big red building that looks like an old barn.
Good morning, everybody!
That's Ken Hughes. He's town supervisor of Essex, which includes the hamlet of Waylandsburg.
On behalf of the town board, I'd like to say welcome to Waylandsburg, lovely, beautiful Waylandsburg, and happy, happy Earth Day.
Hughes and others here are marking Earth Day by unveiling the town's first ever solar installation. There are now 38 solar panels on the roof here. The Grange is a historic building that dates back to 1915. Stan Dobert is the founder of Apex Solar, the company that took on the project.
This was a challenging install. We were so nervous about touching the roof.
Still, they got the job done, and they did it in the middle of a snowstorm back in February. But Dobert says the real hurdle for a project like this is funding. Because it's a public project, the town of Essex had to offer a higher level of pay to the installers at Apex.
We've been doing this for 10 years, and one of the challenges for a municipality is you have to pay prevailing wage. It makes the cost really expensive. And somehow, Nancy and Ken, you pulled it off where many municipalities just can't do it. And to make your building net zero is a huge win.
Nancy is Nancy Bernstein of the Adirondack North Country Association. She helped put all the puzzle pieces together for this project. It was funded by a $6,000 state grant, as well as money from the county's occupancy tax and from Roost, the Regional Office of Sustainable Tourism. Town Supervisor Ken Hughes says if a place like Essex can reduce its carbon footprint, others around the North Country can and should do the same.
We're a little town. We have 621 people in our town. We have a budget of about $1 million. But I believe that for large changes to be effectuated, small little towns need to get on board.
Not only will this solar array save the town money, it's also reducing local carbon emissions. In the 2 months since the panels were installed, they've generated 2.2 megawatt hours of solar power. That's more than what the Grange generally uses. The excess energy then gets put into the town's grid. Mary Nell Bachman manages the Waylandsburg Grange. She says it's hard to believe this project has come to fruition.
It seemed like a fantasy in a way that we were going to power our concerts, our lectures, our movies from the sun. You know, you just can't quite wrap your head around it until you realize, hey, that's exactly what we're doing now.
Other localities like Glens Falls and Saranac Lake are pivoting more towards green energy like solar or hydro. There is pushback, though, to much larger projects, like the 1,700-acre Rich Road solar farm proposed in Canton. Projects of that scale often feed into the state's grid rather than powering the localities directly. Marinelle Bachman from the Waylandsburg Range says it's special knowing that a community center like this one is now powered by the sun.
It's magic. I don't know how else to say it, but it feels like exactly what the people who founded this building would want to see happen.
Creating a legacy that will keep giving back for decades to come. So on a sunny Earth Day, locals gathered around to celebrate the new solar array on the Waylandsburg Range.
Okay, so I guess we're christening and ribbon cutting. So 3, 2, 1, there we go.
Emily Russell, North Country Public Radio, Waylandsburg.
You're listening to Northern Light here on North Country Public Radio. It's 8:11. Good morning. I'm Todd Moe.
And I'm Monica Sandreski. Just ahead, our library series continues with a conversation with retired Saranac Lake librarian Peter Benson. That's just ahead here on Northern Light.
Music by Eddie Lawrence in Moira. You can check out more of Eddie's music, part of our Underscore project at ncpr.org/underscore. Northern Light is supported by Long Run Wealth, an SEC-registered investment advisor in Lake Placid, providing comprehensive wealth management, retirement, and financial planning solutions. LongRunWealth.com. And St. Lawrence Health, offering My Care, a way for patients to access health information and stay connected to their care team. Registration is available at stlawrencehealthsystem.org.
Lawmakers in Albany approved a fifth spending extender to keep the state running until Friday. With the budget now 4 weeks late, they're hoping that the fifth time may be the charm. Karen DeWitt reports.
Ayes 145, noes 0.
The bill is passed.
The New York State Assembly, along with the state Senate, approved a spending extender for the fifth time since April 1st. Monday's bill keeps the government running until Friday. Assembly Speaker Carl Hastie says he's hopeful that by then there can be agreement on a new budget.
I think we're getting closer. There's still a few things that have to be worked out. But hopefully the end is near.
Two of Governor Kathy Hochul's top budget priorities have been settled or shelved until later in the session, and that's eased the process a bit. There's been no announcement of an agreement on changes Hochul wanted to make to the bail reform laws, but Hastie says negotiators have now moved on to other topics, like whether to allow more charter schools to open and how to crack down on illegal cannabis shops that are endangering the burgeoning legal marijuana industry. And the governor's plan to build 800,000 new housing units over the next few years has been taken out of the spending plan. That's after suburban lawmakers objected to some of its provisions. But the delay in passing a budget is starting to take its toll. Senator Pam Helming, speaking during floor debate, voiced concern over holdups in funding to nonprofit agencies that depend on state support, including child care centers. She says previous grants that the providers considered a lifeline have been exhausted, and the new ones have not yet been established.
I have heard over the last several days from several child care providers, not-for-profit providers, who are really struggling right now. They depend upon the stabilization grant funding.
Assemblyman Ed Rah asked Assembly Ways and Means Committee Chair Helene Weinstein about funding for Ryan White Centers for HIV and AIDS treatment. The centers, along with some other healthcare clinics treating vulnerable populations, stand to lose funds because of a change that Governor Hochul made on April 1st on how a Medicaid pharmacy benefit is distributed. The legislature is working on a way to ensure that the centers don't lose money because of the change. But because of the budget delay, much of that funding has not yet materialized.
Can you tell me how that funding being included in these centers might relate to what the ultimate fate of that transition is going to be?
Weinstein answered,
"That will all be resolved and settled by the time that we have a final health bill before us."
The delay could also affect many of the state's school districts that hold votes on their budgets in mid-May. The districts won't know the exact amount of state aid that they are getting until the budget is approved. That makes it harder for them to present accurate proposals to voters. As the weeks pass without a spending plan, advocates for issues that were supposed to be taken up in the portion of the session after the budget are also growing anxious. Advocates for the Aid in Dying measure, which would allow terminally ill New Yorkers with less than 6 months to live the option to end their lives at the time of their choosing, came to the Capitol for a march and rally. Senate sponsor Brad Hoylman-Siegel spoke to the group.
So, folks, we have until mid-June to get this done. We are going to shift course as soon as we sign this budget. I will be working with you every step of the way. I may see you back here. I hope I do.
Hoylman-Siegel and Assembly sponsor, Health Committee Chair Amy Paulin, say they currently do not have enough votes among their Democratic colleagues to pass the bill. But they say the measure has been gaining co-sponsors, and they hope to have time to make their case to other lawmakers if the budget gets done soon. In Albany, I'm Karen DeWitt.
You're listening to Northern Light here on North Country Public Radio. I'm Todd Moe.
And I'm Monica Sandreski. In just a minute, how a love for libraries led to a late career switch to library science. Then stick around after the show for Bird Note. A lost hummingbird is found again in Colombia. That's just ahead at 8:42. But first, Todd has a look at the weather for us.
We've got a mix of sun and clouds in the forecast today, and maybe an occasional shower. Highs near 50 for much of the region this afternoon. Light winds out of the south-southwest. Tonight, partial clearing with lows in the 30s, near 40 overnight. And then tomorrow, about a 65% chance of showers. Again, highs in the low 50s on Wednesday, and winds out of the south. Gradually milder temperatures, highs in the mid-50s on Thursday, partly cloudy. Friday, partly cloudy, a high near 60. And the extended forecast for Saturday and Sunday, partly cloudy skies with afternoon highs in the 50s, near 60. Right now in Canton, clouds and 40 degrees.
You never know how something as simple as a library card could impact your life. Peter Benson has lived in the Adirondacks since the mid-70s. His mother was a librarian, and he's always had a love for books and libraries. He eventually got his library degree when he was 57, after much encouragement from his family.
We're collecting library memories and stories as part of an ongoing series. When Peter emailed me a memory about a library experience, one of the first times he met longtime Saranac Lake Library Director Helen Sprague, I wanted to hear more. Peter Benson was just out of college when he moved to Saranac Lake back in 1977. And little did he know he would one day work with Helen Sprague at the library.
When I moved to Saranac Lake, I had a high school diploma, a pickup truck, and a backpack full of rock climbing gear. And that's pretty much it. But I knew enough to go to the library. So I went to the Saranac Lake Free Library. I got a library card and started checking out books. So in the spring of 1978, I'm walking up Broadway and I didn't know Helen's name at the time, but I see the person who works at the library walking down Broadway. And Helen stops me on the street, looks at me and says, "You have an overdue book at the library." And at the time, the first thing that popped into my head was, man, this is really a small town. Because I came from a place, where it was a 20-minute bus ride into Manhattan. And, there were 10 times the number of people who lived in the town I grew up in. So that's the first thing that popped into my head. But what I immediately said was, you are correct. I will return it immediately, which is what I did. And, at the time, I didn't think anything more of it. But, like I said, 34 years later, I became the director of the library. And before I was the director, I was on the staff there. And I actually got to work with Helen. And she was a delightful person. I never asked her, if she remembered meeting me on the street. I just let that kind of go. But working with her, like I say, she was a delightful person. And I really enjoyed the time I got to spend working with her. Then when I came back as the director, Helen had already retired, but I got to spend 10 years as the director of the library. And there was a number of things that I really enjoyed about it. But probably the thing that I enjoyed the most was knowing that I was able to make a really positive contribution to all the people who lived in Saranac Lake and to all the different communities that use the library. Because it's not just one community. It's lots of different people who use the library all the time. And so being able to encourage other people to read or to listen to books or to check out books themselves. And of course, we also offered audiobooks and DVDs, but also like the community rooms, making those available to people, having different activities and programs at the library. All of that was just, I really enjoyed it. And I really felt that I was helping to make a really great place, an even better place. And so that was very enjoyable. I'm no longer employed at the library. I retired last June, but for 10 years, I got to do it. And that was really nice.
Would you say, Peter, that libraries sort of need to keep up with people in terms of helping them to pursue their interests, as kind of being sort of a resource in terms of, or a place to turn to for, pursuing an interest, whether it be gardening to maybe tax help?
Absolutely. And that's one of the great things about the library. And that's also one of the reasons why when I was working there, I also worked the front desk, because you never knew who was going to walk in. And you never knew what kind of questions they were going to have. And sometimes the questions are, I'm looking for the number one bestseller, or I'm looking for the new James Patterson book. But other times, people will walk in and say, do you have any books on the death of a pet? So being able to provide people with, those kind of resources and information is really important. And of course, at the library, we also offered, there's the Adirondack Research Room there, which is, very unique. And of course, we also offered Wi-Fi and computers and provided one-on-one tutorials. You get a Kindle for Christmas. Oh, that's great. What do we do now? Well, you go to the library. When I think about the changes of libraries, there were a lot of changes in my professional career, but when I think about the changes in my lifetime, it's astronomical. And having that spot or having that place available to the community is really important. The other thing is, it's also a lot of fun. People come in and they have questions, and sometimes they're really interesting questions or really funny questions. And so you're able to assist. And like I said, who could have, a 22, 23-year-old guy, and then 34 years later being the director. I mean, it's just phenomenal. But, that's life, and that's life in the Adirondacks, too. And I really enjoyed Ellen, and I really enjoyed my time as the library director, too.
Retired Saranac Lake Free Library Director Peter Benson. His story is part of our ongoing series on libraries and librarians in the North Country. And hey, it's National Library Week this week. A time to celebrate our libraries, library workers, and promote library use. The theme for Library Week is There's More to the Story, and find out more at your local North Country library.
Music now by Mal Maiz. He's a Costa Rican multi-instrumentalist based in Vermont, and he's back at the Waterhole in Saranac Lake on Saturday night. This is his song, Country Cumbia. We are wrapping up the show for the day. Again, that is Country Cumbia by the artist Mal Maiz. He's performing Saturday night at the Waterhole in Saranac Lake. You can find out more at SaranacLakeWaterhole.com. And just a reminder that this Thursday evening at 7 o'clock, it's a live Howl Story Slam at the Iron Horse Grill on Main Street in Morristown. Everyone is welcome. 5-minute true stories with no notes and no props. You can come and listen or sign up to tell a story. The first 15 storytellers to sign up will be included in the lineup. It's free to attend with a suggested donation of $10 to support the Howl. Details at ncpr.org/Howl. It's the Howl Story Slam at the Iron Horse Grill in Morristown this Thursday night at 7 o'clock.
Keep up with NCPR throughout the day on Facebook and Twitter, Instagram. You can also email us, news@ncpr.org. Our theme music is by Danny Thomas, who lives here in Canton. Till tomorrow, I'm Todd Moe.
And I'm Monica Sandreski. Be well.